Thank you very much. And thank you, Ingun, for inviting me to participate today. Um, I guess I think my story is not an unusual one, but the more I share my story, the more feedback I seem to get, um, that it's a bit unusual. So I'll keep sharing it until it's not an unusual story, hopefully. Um, just in by way of background, I'm 75 years old now, and I have a background in education in engineering and mathematics. And as Tabello said, I had a 40 plus years of experience working for other people, working in businesses, both large and small. But I've always worked for somebody else. I never worked for myself throughout that period. And then just a few days before Christmas in 2011, I was called into a meeting on a Friday afternoon. I think these things always happen on Friday afternoons for strategic reasons, of course. And I was told that I was no longer needed. And I was 64 years old at that time. And it came as a bit of a surprise. And I say a bit of a surprise because I wasn't entirely shocked by the announcement. And it turned out to be the proverbial blessing in disguise. So I took advantage of my newfound freedom and started thinking about what I would do with the rest of my life. I decided to enter the world of consulting, but frankly, it wasn't very fulfilling to me. And I felt the clock was ticking on my life, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to spend the final chapter of my life. Not to sound too maudlin about it, but I didn't want to spend the final chapter of my life doing something that I wasn't excited about. And little by little, this idea for a company took shape for me. I'd always had a passion about the environment and plastic pollution. And as I said, this wasn't one of those aha moments where you wake up one day and you have a great idea for a business. It took a while, little by little, piece by piece. I put together what I thought was a fine idea for a business, replacing plastic packaging with sustainable packaging and doing the designing and manufacturing of that packaging, all using waste material. It sounded like a concept that was perfect for the times that we lived in. But as I'll share with you, there were quite a few challenges. There were many challenges due to the fact that I didn't have a track record as an entrepreneur. And investors, and I did need investors. Investors want people with a track record, and I didn't have one. So I understand their reluctance. But not everyone felt that way. Some folks were opposed to investing simply because of my age, and they weren't embarrassed or shy about saying as much. Um, I can't tell you how many people just shut me down simply because at that time I was already 66 years old. And that was disappointing and frustrating and angering. And I learned later that older entrepreneurs have a 70% success rate when they start a business. 70% success rate, which I think you'll all have to agree is absolutely phenomenal. Compared to young entrepreneurs whose success rate is in the 20s somewhere. And I think that, there's some really good reasons why our success rate is so high. We've got a lot of experience. I mean, we all bring 30 or 40 years to these new ventures. That's a lot of experience, even if it's in a different field. And we're not willing to do a lot of trial and error because we don't have a lot of time for trial and error. So we like to hit it on the head right from the start. unfortunately, I learned about that much later. Um, and, I'm talking about learning. I learned a lot of things as I went along. I didn't have a Wize Move Society to fall back on, shoulders to cry on. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any role models. I'm sure there were, but I didn't know who they were. I didn't know exactly how to find them while I was already trying to start this business. But I did start the business. I did start it without investors. For one of the reasons that I was able to start it without investors is that one of our suppliers, our key supplier, was a company that I'd known for many years from my previous life. And they did something that's absolutely unheard of in business yesterday, today, or even tomorrow, I'm sure. They told me I could pay them after I got paid. That's the kind of an amazing relationship we have, and that's the way it started, and that's the way it is today, 10 years later. So I could not have done that without them, and I realized that was a huge gift that I got. I will say this: things that I've learned from my challenges with trying to raise money was, if you don't need to raise money, please don't. And believe me, I'm talking only from my own perspective here. So please, take my advice with that caveat. If you can start this on your own, from your own bootstraps, with your own savings, or whatever the case may be, try to do that. And also, find a partner. I found a partner shortly after I launched my business. Find a partner. There's nothing like being able to share the joys and challenges. In light of a Wize Move Society, a partner becomes kind of your own personal Wize Move Society. And I think it's just so important to have one if you can find a good fit with somebody. And of course, as in my case, my business was really built on the experience that I brought to it. I didn't have a life working in accounting and then start a guitar factory. I really built on what I knew best, and that worked for me. And I imagine that works for many folks. And on an incredibly practical level, when you're trying to get a business off the ground, this is a point that I find most people are surprised about. There are business competitions everywhere, all over the world, in every category of business you can name. There certainly were business competitions in my particular category, which you might call green business or something of that sort. Enter competitions. If you think you've got a great business idea, enter the competitions. You get a lot of exposure that way. And with exposure, sometimes comes press coverage. It did in my case. I managed to get press coverage because of the type of business that I was launching, as well as my age. Just my age alone was a factor in getting press coverage. In fact, my TED Talk that England referenced in the material for this session, the title of my TED Talk is How I Started My Own, or How I Became an Entrepreneur at 66 years old. I mean, believe me, the TED folks know how to write captions and titles, and they seized on that. That's, I think, what people want to hear about. So do as much competition entering as you can. Try to make the most of it, because the more press coverage you get, the more powerful will be your search engine results. And I think everyone, no matter what kind of business they're growing, wants to have good search results. And today, Pulpworks enjoys incredible search results because of that. As a matter of fact, I'm proud to say we rarely do any sales calls. Most of the business that we have today comes to us thanks to our high search rankings. And we never paid 5 cents for search ads or anything. It's all organic, and it's all because We've got wonderful press coverage. There's nothing more powerful than having your website linked in a New York Times article. I mean, the New York Times is just just an incredibly powerful um, website to link yourself to. Um, I think I wanted to talk about surprises and revelations because I've had quite a few, and I think they're worth pointing out. Um, in fact, the first one I want to point out, I think, is the most noteworthy to me, since we're talking about entrepreneurism and ageism, that the ageism that I experienced trying to launch my business was the only ageism I have experienced in the course of my business. There has never been a hint of ageism in any business dealings I've had in the 10 years of this business. It all had to do with trying to raise money from investors. That's when ageism reared its ugly head for me. Once I was on my way and decided to do this by my own bootstraps and with the help of my partners, ageism never became an issue again. We have literally hundreds of customers. I have never had a customer tell me that they care about my age. Never, ever. In fact, most of my customers don't have a clue as to my age. Likewise for our suppliers, no supplier has ever said, "I'm sorry, I can't sell that to you. You're too old." No one has ever said that. They don't care. Customers just care about getting good product, quality product on time, when they wanted it, how they wanted it. And suppliers, they just want their bills to be paid. They don't care how old you are when you're writing that check. So that there's good news out there. Ageism doesn't rear its head when you're deeply involved in your business. It comes up when you're trying to get something from somebody. That's when they use age as an excuse not to give it to you. I've got colleagues of all ages, I'm delighted to say, and I've got friends of all ages, many of whom I've met through my business. It's it's definitely intergenerational. My own business partner is of a different generation, so it's been a wonderful entree to meeting all kinds of people of different ages, um, and I'm delighted to say that what I heard, I guess it is 4 years ago now since my TED talk, I got hundreds, if not thousands, of letters and emails, feedback after my TED talk, all positive, I'm pleased to share. But there was one that stood out for me because it didn't come from an individual. It came from a life insurance company, and it's a life insurance company right in the Netherlands. It's called Aegon. I believe they're the world's largest life insurance company. In the US, they're called Transamerica. And I heard from people in their research department. They saw my TED talk and they wanted to share their feedback with me and congratulations, etc. And they shared with me that what I was doing was the best thing that you can do for your mental health, bar none. The challenge of trying to start a business on your own and going at it passionately is so powerful for your own mental health, that there's nothing I could do in life that would be better for my mental health. And that includes, all kinds of Sudoku or crossword puzzles or you name it. Nothing is as good for your mental health as getting involved in a challenge like starting a business. So it didn't change my approach to my business, but it was really nice to underscore what I was already doing. It is the most rewarding and challenging work of my life. And I've had good jobs. I mean, I have a good education. I've had good jobs since I left school. Every job of mine has been a, quote, good job. But nothing comes close to what I'm doing now. Nothing at all. I literally can't wait to wake up in the morning and check my emails and see what kind of business is out there waiting or challenging us. You know, my kids, my grandkids are proud of the work that I'm doing. It is the final chapter to my career that I always wanted. When I lost my job back in 2009, and just, kind of started doing a little consulting work and felt so unrewarded by it. This is what I was looking to do. I didn't know it at the time, but this is what I was looking to do. And it's turned out to be exactly that. And I couldn't be more thrilled. And again, thank you for letting me babble on for, I don't know how long it's been, but hopefully I haven't gone over my time. But thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.